Hi, very good morning. I'm Dr. Janak Patel, MD, General Physician. All my video lectures are for educative purpose. In continuity of ECG series, this is another useful topic. Usually we don't pay much attention to this finding in ECG, but if you look properly, you can differentiate a dangerous ECG from a benign ECG, and that is by looking at a U wave, by looking at the J wave, J point, etc. So in today's lecture we are going to discuss regarding U wave and J point and J wave, and how it will be useful to you in your everyday practice. This will be very useful to the person who is going to do a private practice, as well as the person who is working in ICU or intensive care unit. So we'll be discussing on two basic points, that is U wave and J point and J wave. It is always said that more you look at the ECG, more you know, and you listen to some person, you will remember those things for lifetime, and it will be helpful to you in your everyday practice. Now first we'll start with a U wave. What is U wave? U wave is a small deflection which is immediately followed by T wave, and it is in the same direction of the T wave, and T wave is in the same direction of QRS complex. So U wave is also positive whenever QRS complex is upright, and it is just after T wave. If you want to look at the U wave, base lead is V2 and V3. So whenever you want to look regarding a U wave, you look in lead V2 and V3. And if you get a small upright deflection after T wave, it is by and large normal. But there are some criteria where U wave is taller, or we call more upright or inverted. It signifies something. We'll be going through that. The amplitude of U wave is 1/4 of the T wave. So whatever is the amplitude of a T wave, 1/4 of that will be the U wave. This is U wave, and this is V2 or V3 lead, or it is always less than 2 millimeter. So it is never more than 2 millimeter. So indirectly, if it is more than 2 millimeter, or if it is more than 1/4 of T wave, it will be abnormal. And by and large, the best way to see U wave is in V2, V3, and it is repolarization of a papillary muscle which is producing U wave. So it is a delayed repolarization of Purkinje fiber, or it is a prolonged repolarization of a mid myocardial M cells, or it is also said that after potential resulting from mechanical forces in the ventricular wall. These are the three mechanisms, and there was one more which was said that it is due to repolarization of papillary muscle. Still exactly it is a question mark. So U wave is in the same direction of T wave. U wave size we have already mentioned, it is less than 2 millimeter or 1/4 of T wave height. U wave will become visible when the heart rate is below 65, or sometime we say that bradycardia is one of the cause of appearance of U wave. So in presence of tachycardia, usually U wave will disappear. So the voltage of U wave is 25% of the T wave, or it is less than 2 millimeter. So that is what is we call as a new U wave, and it is always in the direction of T wave. Here you can see U wave is equal to T wave, or it is little more than T wave. So this is pathological. While here you can see the height of the T wave and height of U wave. This is U wave. This is T wave. So the amplitude is less, and it is less than even one small square. So that is non-pathological. Normal U wave we already mentioned, it is less than 2 millimeter height or less than 25% of T wave amplitude. A prominent U wave or a tall U wave more than 25% of the T wave, or more than, it is said that more than 2 millimeter height you should consider as prominent U wave. And if it is inverted, means it is in opposite direction of the T wave, it is always pathological. So prominent U wave and inverted U wave are considered as pathological. In everyday practice, if it is more than 0.25 millimeter in height, it should be considered as pathological. There are three classical conditions you will come across very frequently. One is hypokalemia, second is hypercalcemia, and third is LVH. And particularly if the person who is on digoxin, we call digoxin effect, can also produce prominent U wave. While in case of ischemia, it is inverted, or the person who is on certain drugs like amiodarone, sotalol, quinidine, procainamide, diazopyramide, this can also produce prominent U wave. But always keep it in mind, hypokalemia, hypocalcemia, LVH and digoxin effect, not toxicity. So as usual, we have already mentioned, it is because of repolarization of papillary muscle or Purkinje system, etc. So physiologically, you will see appearance of U wave if the person is having bradycardia. But pathological, we already mentioned hypokalemia, it is hypercalcemia, not hypo, and digoxin. And as far as inverted U wave is concerned, ischemic heart disease. We should keep it in mind. And prediction is almost that if there is an LAD or LMC occlusion, it is quite frequently negative. So this should be kept in mind. So bradycardia and severe hypokalemia topmost on the list. Now these are the few ECG which are there simultaneously. Here there is a bradycardia, and you can see after a tall T wave there is a small upright wave which is a U wave. This is normal, or we call physiological. But if the person who has got a severe hypokalemia, you can see in a hypokalemia you will come across a flat, nearly flat T wave, or you might have a little ST segment sagging, and then you will have an appearance of a U wave. So this is U wave, this is not T wave. This is ST segment has become flattened out, T wave has flattened out, and then you have got a positive wave which is U wave. Also you can get a U wave prominence in hypomagnesemia, hypothermia, raised intracranial pressure, LVH, hypertrophic cardiomyopathy. You should look for, but hypokalemia and hypocalcemia you should look for. Another very important thing is digoxin, and don't forget some of the drugs. So you can see that this is taller than even T wave, very classical in case of hypokalemia. This is in digoxin toxicity. You have got QT interval is becoming short and you have got an appearance of U wave. This is in hypocalcemia. You have got a T wave. This is in amiodarone. This is in a left ventricular hypertrophy. You have got an appearance. This is not T wave. This is U wave. So may not be of much significant, but very useful in hypokalemia, digoxin toxicity, and hypocalcemia, because this will produce QT prolongation, false QT prolongation. So do look for that. In a left ventricular hypertrophy, you will have all the criteria of left ventricular hypertrophy, plus after T wave, there may be small upright wave, which you consider that as U wave. And this is quite frequently seen in a person with a left ventricular hypertrophy. As far as the inverted U wave is concerned, we already mentioned that U wave inversion is always abnormal, and it is in the lead with upright T wave, and it is very specific of ischemic heart disease, particularly coronary artery disease. It may be also seen in some of the cases of hypertension along with LVH, in cardiomyopathy, and sometimes also in case of hypothyroidism. So it is more specific for myocardial ischemia. So you must look for inverted T wave to rule out myocardial ischemia. And it has been shown that predictor value almost comes to 75% stenosis of LAD or LMCA will show you inverted T wave. So, inverted U wave. So you must look for that inverted U wave. You can see here a very good U wave inversion is seen. This is ST segment elevation with T wave upright, and this is inverted U wave. This is inverted U wave. You can see here. This is inverted U wave. V3, V4, and even in V5. They suggest ischemia. And here, along with ST segment elevation, this will be more in favor of it. This is U wave, inverted U wave. We consider that as part of ST segment elevation with T wave inversion, but this is inverted U wave. That is one of the indication of what we call as ischemia, and this can be acute infarct, acute MI. So even in an acute MI, you can get inverted U wave. In an unstable angina also, you can see this inverted U wave. This will be here. Same, unstable angina. And this is that Prinzmetal angina, or even in case of a STEMI. But this was a case of Prinzmetal angina. Vasospastic angina. So inverted U wave will be in the opposite direction of a T wave. You can see here, this is an unbelievable U wave inversion. And that is in a case of a coronary artery disease. Also, you can get a U wave inversion in hypertensive, acute pulmonary embolism, intracranial hemorrhage also. So you get bizarre T wave inversion very frequently in intracerebral hemorrhage, which is non-ischemic. You can see here U wave appearance. So U wave appearance, do look for, have a good clinical history, and then you can interpret what is the importance of a U wave. Again repeating, upright U wave, bradycardia, hypokalemia, hypocalcemia, hypomagnesemia, and digoxin toxicity. These are of more importance. And there will be few drugs like quinidine, procainamide, amiodarone will also produce upright U wave or prominent U wave. While inverted, classical in case of ischemic heart disease. Once in a while, you will also come in a hypertensive person, also in a case of what we call as the intracranial hemorrhage and maybe an acute pulmonary embolism. This is hypokalemia. You can see that there is a prominent U wave, TUP. Between RR, you are getting two prominent wave. This is T, this is U. And then you have got a small wave we call as a P wave. So this will be one of the findings which you will come across in case of hypokalemia. So do look for that. Now suppose this is one ECG where 41-year-old male person presented with chest pain. His ECG is below. You are trying to decide whether in this early repolarization versus acute MI. Now this is very important because early repolarization is also dangerous one. Acute MI is also dangerous one. But in acute MI, if you don't diagnose acute MI and leave it as early repolarization, you may end up with complication of acute MI in the form of a mortality. But also it is also of importance to identify early repolarization, confirm the diagnosis, and to try to differentiate into type 1, type 2 or type 3. Because type 2 and 3 are dangerous one. 3 is the most dangerous one. Type 1 is benign. Then we call it a benign early repolarization. But 2 and 3 variety are dangerous because they can end up with VT and VF and they can have a sudden cardiac death. So it is also important from that point of view to identify early repolarization and also differentiate acute MI. And for that particular purpose, there are certain things which are there. So have a nice look at this. We are now discussing in that particular part because this will be J point, J wave. Then we also look at S wave and other criteria to differentiate early repolarization from acute MI. So we'll be discussing from that particular part. Now if you look properly, there is a slight ST segment elevation in lead 2, lead 3, even in AVF. There is a slight ST segment elevation. Also here in V3, V4, V5, V6. We don't have in V1 AVL. So it is in good number of leads. Now whenever you get that, we look at certain things. We look at ST segment is elevated or not, and if it is elevated, what shape. So first, ST segment is elevated when sorry, when ST segment is elevated, along with that you look at the J point. So J point identification is very important, and once you identify a J point, now you have to mention two things, whether you can see S wave. Now if you look here in V2, you can see a small S wave. There is S wave. So this is of importance. So this was discussed by Dr. Matu, which is a prominent cardiologist in USA. He gives a very good idea that in V2 and V3, if there is J point and if there is S wave present in V2 and V3, it is more in favor of straightforward, in favor of early repolarization. But if those are not seen in V2 and V3, always suspect STEM. Now we'll be going through certain ECG patterns. Now if you look here, it is concave. And if you look properly, there will be small notch at J point that we call as a J wave. So if there is a presence of J wave, If it is concave, not convex, concave, plus ST segment elevation and T wave height. That is also important to differentiate between early repolarization and pericarditis. That will be also discussing in subsequent slides. And also it will be useful to identify acute MI or early repolarization. So now we'll be going through those particular things. Why it is of importance? Because in case of type 2 and type 3 variety of early repolarization, because they can end up with sudden VT and VF, there is a very high chance of sudden cardiac arrest as well as sudden cardiac death. Hence, this is very, very useful. Sudden cardiac arrest and sudden cardiac death occurs when cardiac activity abruptly stops in a patient who was asymptomatic up till the moment of hemodynamically collapse. That's why the word sudden is used before cardiac arrest and before cardiac death. If patient is successfully revived, then we'll label that as a sudden cardiac arrest. And if the patient dies, we'll use the word sudden cardiac death. Hence, this is of importance because if you identify, you can prevent cardiac arrest and sudden cardiac death. So, sudden cardiac arrest can be prevented and sudden cardiac death can be also prevented. These are called killer ECG. Normal sinus rhythm is okay, but if you get a ventricular tachycardia or ventricular fibrillation or there is a asystole, these are lethal or we call killer ECG. So sinus rhythm can be followed by polymorphic ventricular tachycardia or ventricular tachycardia is followed by ventricular fibrillation. Here there is R on T phenomena and then person goes into VT and VF and then this is highly lethal. We also label that as a killer ECG, widowmaker or deadly ECG, and those can be VT, VF, arrest or we call asystole and pulseless electrical activity. Keep this thing in mind. So pulseless electrical activity is also, you will see the ECG looks normal, but there is no pulse and person is having apnea. So that is pulseless electrical activity. And when you get occasional wide complex QRS, occasional beat is coming, this is labeled as agonal rhythm or terminal rhythm. So you can have a straight line, then we call it the asystole. Some person label that as a fine ventricular fibrillation, and do keep it in mind. This is also labeled as arrest or asystole or standstill. And you can have sinus rhythm followed by a straight line, then we call that as a sinus arrest. If there is a ventricular complex followed by a similar line, we'll call that the ventricular arrest. So ventricular tachycardia followed by ventricular fibrillation, ventricular flutter, ventricular fibrillation itself, agonal rhythm, P wave asystole or asystole. All these are killer ECGs. Any one of these rhythms should be paid attention and immediately the treatment should be started. While atrial flutter fibrillation can end up with complication, but ventricular fibrillation is a killer. So it should be treated as a killer ECG. There are good number of causes for sudden cardiac death like acute MI. Almost it will be accounting for 80%. Cardiomyopathy, particularly dilated cardiomyopathy and hypertrophic cardiomyopathy, almost 15% of the causes of sudden cardiac death, and 5% are because of congenital conditions. Some are acquired like long QT, short QT, which are congenital, Brugada, hypertrophic cardiomyopathy, dilated cardiomyopathy, ARVD. These are all congenital. These upper four groups are congenital. Commatio cordis is because of the injury to the chest, particularly in a football player. Again, coronary anomaly is congenital. Catecholaminergic polymorphic ventricular tachycardia is acquired group, and that can end up with sudden cardiac death. And very, very rare, this is again congenital, WPW syndrome can end up with a cardiac arrhythmia which can be lethal. By and large, it will end up with what we call as a re-entry tachycardia, AVRT, rather than ventricular tachycardia. But it can interfere and can end up with even VT. So sudden cardiac death can be because of all these conditions: acute MI, cardiomyopathy, congenital condition, commercial is acquired, and catecholaminergic polyventricular tachycardia, polymorphic ventricular tachycardia. So they can end up with lethal syncope and death. I've already mentioned everything. You can have a cardiac, which can be ischemic heart disease, structural heart disease, and non-structural heart disease, like acute MI, hypertrophic obstructive cardiomyopathy, which will be structural, mitral valve prolapse, ARVD, dilated cardiomyopathy, they will be structural heart disease, long QT, short QT, they are non-structural heart disease. Then torsades de pointes, early repolarization syndrome groups, Brugada, it is type 4 variety of early repolarization. Brugada phenocopy, usually it will be not so much lethal. Non-cardiac groups will be massive pulmonary embolism, intracranial hemorrhage, subarachnoid hemorrhage, aortic dissection, hyperkalemia, commatio electric shock, or we call electrolution. All these conditions can end up with VTVF, asystole, or pulseless electrical activity, and can be a cause for sudden cardiac death. There is one group we also label where we cannot identify, we call idiopathic VTVF. And then catecholaminergic polymorphic ventricular tachycardia. These are all inherited conditions: Brugada, long QT, short QT, primary VTVF, Wolff-Parkinson-White syndrome. Commatio is actually not inherited, but certain people are more prone to. Arrhythmogenic right ventricular dysplasia, Wolff-Parkinson-White syndrome, repetitive monomorphic ventricular tachycardia, catecholaminergic polymorphic ventricular tachycardia, and idiopathic ventricular tachycardia. These are all the big groups. They are all inherited groups. This is also labeled as CPVT, catecholaminergic polymorphic VT. We already mentioned all those, we can skip over. Now there are J point or J wave syndromes like myocardial infarction, hypothermia, Prinzmetal angina, hypercalcemia. We are more interested in early repolarization syndrome because it is a very close differential diagnosis of STEMI, ARVD. They are all congenital groups. Hypertrophic obstructive cardiomyopathy, then familial polymorphic ventricular tachycardia, catecholaminergic polymorphic ventricular tachycardia. They are all genetic groups. They are also in acquired groups. These are all the ECG we have already discussed before. That is RBBB with prolonged PR. Then this is short PR with WPW, that is delta wave. They are more prone to supraventricular tachycardias. Brugada, where you get a cowed up ST elevation, they are more prone to VTVF. Epsilon wave, that is RV dysplasia, ARVD, and that are again more prone to VTVF. Long QT, short QT, they are again more prone to VTVF, where long QT are more common as compared to short QT. Hypertrophic cardiomyopathy are also more prone to have VTVF, and if there is a fragmented QRS complex in a chest lead, again that is also more prone to have VTVF. So always look in a chest lead, particularly V1 to V3. You will get any one of these complexes. Pay attention. RBBB, WPW, Brugada, ARVD, particularly in V1, V2. Long QT, short QT, hypertrophic cardiomyopathy in V1, V2 will have a small R wave and deep S wave. And look at the fragmented QRS complex. So this is a very, very useful slide. Have an attention and look for that. J point identification is very useful. It is a termination of QRS complex and beginning of ST segment. And at that junction, if you get any wave, we call that as a J wave. And this J point is present in all ECG, and it is a transition from QRS complex to ST segment. And if there is a deflection which occurs before the J point, that is the end of S wave and starting of ST segment, at that point if you get any deflection, we call as a J wave. And this identification of the J wave, the type of deflection, is very useful. So J point and J wave identification is useful. So if you get an appearance of a J wave, and if there is a symptoms, we call that as J wave syndrome. So J wave and J point are different. J point is the end of QRS complex and beginning of ST segment. That is the end of ventricular depolarization and repolarization. While any deflection at that J point is called J wave. This J wave becomes useful because if you identify J wave, and the type of J wave will be useful. So this is a beginning of a ST segment, that is called J point. Now we'll show you all those different. This is J point. This is J point. And at that J point, you can see that small deflection, that is J wave. So this is significant. If you see such things, this is suggestive of an early repolarization, which can be in an early repolarization syndrome, benign early repolarization. Also sometimes you see also in case of a what we call as a pericarditis. You can have, see here, you have got a J point and then there is a terminal QRS complex which is slurred like this, or there is a J wave appearance and there is a J point without ST elevation. Here this is with ST elevation. So if you see with an ST elevation, always rule out early repolarization and pericarditis. So presence of J wave is very useful, and also along with that, if there is an ST elevation or ST elevation is not there, that is also useful. So J wave syndromes means at the J point, if you get a J wave which tells you that it is early repolarization. So J wave syndromes will include early repolarization syndromes like benign early repolarization and other types. Another you will have to differentiate from pericarditis. Also you can have early repolarization in Osborn wave in hypothermia. Electrolyte imbalance like hypokalemia, hypocalcemia, hypomagnesemia. All these hypoconditions. They will also have J wave syndrome or J wave abnormality. So this is J point. This is J point is elevated with ST segment elevation. This is again J point elevation with ST segment elevation, while this is J point depression. So there is no ST elevation. And here you can see there is a J point, and before J point there is a deflection we call as a J wave. So this is J wave and J point. Whenever you see this, this is usually in a early repolarization, and we call that as a benign early repolarization and other allied conditions. So benign early repolarization, you will see ST segment elevation with J point elevation. And if you see a J wave, it further helps you to differentiate early repolarization from other conditions. And whenever it is symptomatic, we call it early repolarization syndromes. Always look for pericarditis, hypothermia, STEMI and non-STEMI, because sometimes they mimics identical like this. You will have to differentiate. So we'll be mentioning those findings. So three main important conditions: early repolarization, pericarditis, and STEMI. So look for those conditions. So together we call this a J wave syndromes. So this is J point, this is notch J point, and this is slurred. All this feature suggest early repolarization. Early repolarization can be there in a early repolarization syndromes group, which can be benign. You can see in pericarditis. You can have sometime also in case of a STEMI, hypothermia, hypocalcemia, hypokalemia, hypomagnesemia. So this is J point, this is J point elevation, this is J point depression. Again, this is slurred and notch. You can see a small notch. This will tell you that this is more in favor of benign early repolarization groups. But together, a common term, J wave syndromes. If it is slurred only, look for other also. This is J wave. And if it is symptomatic, J wave syndrome. In that early repolarization syndrome group, pericarditis, Osborn wave in hypothermia, and electrolyte imbalance. These are again, this is lead V5 and this is in AVF also. You can see J wave without ST elevation. There is no ST elevation. There is J wave and it is notch. While this is slurred without ST elevation. And this is with ST elevation. Here it is slurred. You can see slurred. This you have to pay attention and try to rule out whether it is STEMI or non-STEMI. STEMI or what we call as a early repolarization syndrome. And when you get such a tall, such a wave, which is a J wave, we call Osborn wave, and it is characteristic in a hypothermia, hypocalcemia. Also in case of a head injury also. This is also considered as one of the J wave, J point elevation, that is Brugada. And Brugada type 1 is known to produce VTVF. So do look for those things in Brugada. And it is put as type 4 variety of a benign early repolarization group, early repolarization syndrome in that. Now in this particular, if you look here, you can see that there is a small notch. You can see in V4, V5, V6. You can see very clearly. Also you can see in lead 2, lead 3 and even in AVF. this will tell you that this is J wave and J point is here. So you have got an elevation of J point, there is a J wave, notching of J wave. This can be in a case of early repolarization syndrome. So you must rule out that. So again, you got an elevation, you got a small notch, you got a small notch here. You try to look in lid 2, lid 3 and AVF. So elevation or depression of J wave is significant, you should look for, and elevation of J point is there with benign early repolarization. It can be there also with Osborn wave, which is quite commonly seen in a hypothermia. So we'll have to rule out what is there in an ECG. So what are the characteristics of early repolarization pattern? It is a widespread ST segment elevation. You will have to differentiate early repolarization syndrome from pericarditis and STEMI. Almost in 10 to 15% of the patient with a chest pain will present with early repolarization pattern, which is in favor of STEMI. You will have to differentiate, even in pericarditis also person can have a chest pain, and also in an early repolarization syndrome group you can have a chest pain. So you will have to differentiate these three groups from each other because the treatment will be different. If you misdiagnose STEMI, you will be landing up with problem. Particularly person will be landed up with angiography in a cath lab, and when coronary angiography comes normal, then you look for early repolarization or pericarditis. And good number of time in a pericarditis, if anticoagulants, aspirin, clopidogrel, if they are given, person can end up with hemorrhagic pericardial effusion and cardiac tamponade, and it can be lethal. Other way around, if person is having STEMI and you diagnose them as early repolarization syndrome groups, you wait for a while, you can end up with complication of STEMI as cardiac arrhythmia and sudden cardiac death. That's why it is very, very important. So it is crucial to give an importance when there is a family history of sudden cardiac death and in patient with a syncope having a dramatic J point elevation, and if there is a descending or horizontal ST segment, because if this is there, it is more in favor of what we call as STEMI. Now we'll be going through the criteria for early repolarization syndrome, or we together we put them in a common heading, J wave syndrome. That is, J point is deviated from isoelectric line, either it is elevated or depressed. Person may be symptomatic or asymptomatic, and good number of time they will end up with ventricular fibrillation, polymorphic ventricular tachycardia, and even sudden cardiac death. That's why even to identify a early repolarization syndrome group, it is very, very important. So first you have to identify there is an early repolarization, and whether person is symptomatic or asymptomatic, you will have to find out and then put them into a group we call as early repolarization syndrome or J wave syndrome. So ER syndrome is diagnosed in presence of J point elevation which is more than 1 millimeter in a two consecutive leads, either inferior or lateral leads. Inferior lead is lead 2, lead 3 AVF, and lateral lead is V4, V5, V6. If you get that J point elevation, it is early repolarization group, and if it's symptomatic, we put them into ER syndrome. And this particular group of people, if they give you a history that patient was resuscitated from unexplained VTVF or person was having polymorphic VT, it is ER syndrome. ER syndrome can also be diagnosed in a sudden cardiac death in which if you have got a previous ECG which is showing you a J point elevation of 1 millimeter in two consecutive leads, either in inferior or lateral leads, and ER pattern can be diagnosed in the presence of J point elevation of more than 1 millimeter and in a two consecutive lead, again in the inferior and lateral leads. So this becomes very important that if you see a J point elevation in lead 2, lead 3 AVF or in V4, V5, V6, and if that J point elevation is more than 1 millimeter, it is significant. It tells you that person has got early repolarization. If a person is asymptomatic and on ECG you record a run of VT or VF, or you record a polymorphic VT, it is suggestive of J wave syndrome. Or we also label them as early repolarization syndrome. So there are some characteristics of a benign early repolarization where you get ST elevation less than 2 millimeter, but we say that ST elevation is more than 1 millimeter. It is concavity, there is a notching seen, or we call hook appearance, fish hook appearance, or it is slurring of the terminal QRS complex. There is a symmetrical concordrant T wave of large amplitude, and there is a widespread or diffuse distribution of ST elevation, and this will be seen in inferior and lateral leads. Now whenever you see in an inferior and lateral leads, it is more in favor of a benign early repolarization, but depending upon other leads, they are divided into different groups. We'll be coming across that slide. So if you get a notch J point in V3, concave upward ST segment, you see mainly in V2, V3, V5. If there is a PR depression, the PR wave is depressed. And if there is an ST elevation which is less than 2 millimeter, always keep it in mind, it could be benign early repolarization. So concave ST segment, or we call smiley, tall T wave, large amplitude T wave, notch at J point, PR wave is depressed, or you get a slurred J point, suspect benign early repolarization. So concave ST segment, tall T wave, PR depression, J wave notching or slurring of J wave, and if this is presenting chest leads right from V2 to V6, particularly in V4, V5, V6, and in lead 2, lead 3 AVF, suspect benign early repolarization. So same thing repeated here, ST elevation in precordial lead, PR depression, it is more common in what we call as pericarditis rather than in case of benign early repolarization. T wave amplitude is prominent. ST segment to T wave ratio is less than 0.25, while in case of pericarditis it will be more than 0.25. You will have a fish hook pattern which may be seen in V3 or V4, and ECG changes are stable. These are the characteristic of a benign early repolarization, and if you label them only as an early repolarization, it is ST segment is elevated right from the J point, it is concave, there is a notch or a slurred ST segment, it is commonly seen in V2 to V5, may be seen in a lead 2, lead 3 AVF. There is no reciprocal changes in ST segment in other leads, and ST elevation is not more than 2 millimeter. It is less than 2 millimeter. Then we call that as early repolarization, and if you want to label as a benign, these are the characteristics. You have to have all these characteristics. then you can call that as a benign early repolarization. So this we have already discussed. So if you get an early repolarization pattern and if it is symptomatic with arrhythmias, then we call that as ER syndrome. If there is no symptoms and there is no arrhythmia, we call as early repolarization pattern. So pattern is asymptomatic, syndrome is symptomatic arrhythmias. We have already mentioned this. So if there is a ventricular fibrillation or polymorphic ventricular tachycardia or ventricular tachycardia and you get this ER pattern, always suspect type 2, type 3 variety. So widespread concave ST segment elevation from V2 to V5. You've got a concave ST elevation, J point notchic or we call Fish-Hook pattern. T wave is taller, it is asymmetrical, and if you get ST elevation to T wave ratio is less than 25%, then these are all the criteria which fits well. And we add one more, no reciprocal ST depression in other leads except AVR. So this is very nicely given here, all those, and that suggests benign early repolarization. Repeating again, ST elevation in precordial lead, plus you might see even in case of a lead 2, lead 3 AVF, PR depression is absent, T wave is prominent, ST segment to T wave ratio is less than 0.25, Fish-Hook appearance, and ECG changes are stable, plus ST segment elevation is concave. All those, if you fit together, we'll label that as a benign early repolarization syndrome. So J point notching, concave, ST segment elevation less than 2 millimeter. It should be less than 2 millimeter, and tall T wave, and magnitude, that is ST to T ratio, is less than 0.25, and T wave is prominent. You will label that as benign early. Now if you start getting a dynamic changes, it is more in favor of STEMI, and that will show you changes in hours and days. While in pericarditis, you will get a dynamic changes. We'll have stage 1, stage 2, stage 3, stage 4 over days and weeks. While in case of early repolarization, there will be no dynamic changes. That is again in favor of early repolarization. Stable ECG. ECG does not show you changes. But these changes may disappear with tachycardia or on a stress. If you ask the person to have TMT, those changes, ST segment changes, notch, etc. will disappear. Or if you give atropine and produce tachycardia, or if you give potassium, or you take ECG after TMT, it will change over. See here, with tachycardia, it has disappeared. Those early repolarization pattern has disappeared. So either with stress test or with atropine or potassium, that changes will disappear. So changes you will see in V4, V5, V6 quite common. You will have a hook, that is Fish-Hook pattern, ST segment elevation. ST segment elevation will be less than 2 millimeter. Tall T wave, it will be seen in a lateral leads plus inferior leads, that is lead 2, lead 3 AVF. Do keep it in mind. Same thing shown here in V4, V5, V6. Again in V4, V5 you can see a small notch. Even you can see in V2 also, V3. Look also in lead 3, lead 2, lead 3 it is not clear. So this will be early repolarization syndrome groups, or we call benign early repolarization. You can classify into 4 types. Type 1, where you get changes, early repolarization changes in lateral precordial lid, that is V4, V5, V6. It is benign and it is seen in a male athletes. If you see in a inferior or inferolateral lids, there is a moderate risk of VTVF, and that we put into type 2. If they are seen in an inferior, lateral, as well as in V2, V3 and V4, they are at very high risk and high mortality. So this is type 3 is more dangerous than type 2, while type 1 is considered as benign. Brugada is considered as type 4 variety, where you get a J point elevation in a right precordial lid, that is V1, V2, V3, and you will have a downsloping, that is curved up, and you have got a 3 groups in that Brugada: type 1, type 2 and type 3. In type 2 and type 3 you will have a saddle pattern appearance of ST segment, while in type 1 it will be a downsloping. This we have already shown you. This is again, you can see ST segment elevation and you can see a small notch. Also look in lid 2, lid 3 and AVF. Try to have that particular. Now in this lid, if you look in V2, there is a marked ST segment elevation with a tall T wave. Now this will be very important to differentiate from STEMI and early repolarization. Here if you see, there are counter changes in lid 2, lid 3 and AVF, or we call reciprocal changes, and you have got an ST elevation in lid 1 and AVF. This is very significant and in favor of STEMI. Another thing very important, that person will have a severe chest pain, and the changes which you are seeing, this is not concave, plus you are having a tall T wave in V4, V5. This should suggest that this is STEMI. So ST elevation is convex. There is an hyperacute T wave in V2, V3, V4, V5. There is no notch, or we call there is no notch at J point, and there is also ST depression, which are reciprocal changes of anteroseptal or anterior wall infarct, that is in lid 2, lid 3 AVF. Do keep it in mind. This should not be misdiagnosed as early repolarization syndrome or J wave syndrome, or we call as early repolarization or benign early repolarization. So in short, the difference, STEMI will have a localized territory like lid 2, lid 3 AVF, or V2 to V6, while here it will be in a precordial lid and may be also seen in a inferolateral lids. STEMI will be very frequently with reciprocal ST depression in, we call as the opposite lids, while here there will be no reciprocal change except in AVR. By and large, there will be hyperacute T wave or biphasic T wave or inverted T wave, quite common, while in an early repolarization, T wave is always in the direction of QRS complex. In STEMI, you will have a dynamic changes which will be over a period of hours, while early repolarization changes will be always static. You will not see changes in a serial ECG. There will be a notch which will be seen just before the J wave. We call it a notch at J point. It is a face hook pattern, while there is no notch in case of a STEMI. These are some of the important points to differentiate. If you keep this thing in mind, you will be able to differentiate STEMI from early repolarization. Hence, there is also one clue which is given by Dr. Mutu, that is, in order to differentiate benign early repolarization, you must have either presence of S wave or presence of J wave in both V2 and V3. So here he suggests always have a look at V2 and V3. In benign early repolarization, usually we get ST segment elevation in V2 and V3. Now in that particular, if you get a J wave present, that is fish hook appearance, or there is an S wave, it is straightforward in favor of benign early repolarization. If we mention other way around, if in V2, if there is no S wave or if there is no J wave, it is least likely to be benign early repolarization. Always suspect stem. Same way, in V3 also, means you look in V2 as well as V3. In either of these leads, it is not that in both the leads, either in V2 or V3, if S wave is absent or it is not seen or there is no J wave, that is there is no notching, you must suspect stem. This is again a very important clue to differentiate between benign early repolarization from stem. So in a benign early repolarization, we already mentioned there will be J point, and at the J point you will have a J wave, and in V2 or V3 you will have a S wave. So look for these two. If you get these two, it is benign. If it is not there, suspect stem. So clearly you can see S wave, clearly you can see J point. At J point there is a fish hook appearance, so this has to be a benign. S wave present, J point, you have got notch, fish hook appearance, this has to be benign. Here this is concave, but here it is flat ST. So one more clue, if you get an ST elevation but it is horizontal ST segment, always suspect ischemic. And if it is concave, suspect BER, that is benign early repolarization, or acute pericarditis. Again, there is S wave, not S wave. S wave is present, but in V3 there is no S wave or there is no J wave. There is no S wave, neither there is J wave. Hence, this should be suspected as stem. Here there is an S wave in V2, but there is no J wave. Here there is no J wave as well as there is no S wave. So if there is absence of S wave and J wave in either V2 or V3, you should suspect ischemic heart disease. Now there is similar pattern you see in a pericarditis. What is the most important in pericarditis? You will have a PR depression, which you don't see in a early repolarization. So main difference between these two is, most important is, PR segment will be in a opposite direction of ST segment. So if ST segment is elevated, PR segment will be depressed. And this will be seen in lead 2, lead 3 AVF and in chest leads. You will have a ST segment elevation in large number of leads, means we call global. While in case of an AVR, you will have an PR segment elevation and ST segment depression. It will be just opposite of other leads. Along with that, if you look at the ST segment elevation, ST elevation to T wave ratio will be more than 0.25, meaning ST elevation is more than T wave elevation. So ST elevation is significantly elevated, while in case of early repolarization, the ratio is always less than 0.25. So this is the main another difference to confirm that this is pericarditis or early repolarization. And in early repolarization, the changes will remain same, while in case of pericarditis, those changes will change over a period of days and weeks. That's why we call dynamic changes will take place in ST segment changes. And this is the way we try to differentiate. So in a pericarditis, in stage 1, you will have a widespread ST elevation with PR depression, with reciprocal changes in AVR. In stage 2, you will have a normalization of ST changes, generalized T wave flattening. In stage 3, you will have a flattened T wave, becomes inverted now. And then in stage 4, again they will become normalized. And as far as the ECG features in stage 1 is concerned, you will have a concave ST segment elevation, But most important part, PR will be in opposite direction. So we call PR depression with ST segment elevation, and you will see in lead 1, lead 2, lead 3, AVL, AVF. In AVR it will be reciprocal, and in precordial lead right from V2 to V6. In AVR you will have a ST segment depression with PR elevation. You may or may not see such changes in V1. There will be always tachycardia, and when you get a pericardial effusion there will be associated with low voltage. This is characteristic, and this particular reciprocal changes ST segment elevation with PR depression is also given a name knuckle sign, and that at the ST segment elevation you might have a fish hook appearance that may be seen also in case of a pericarditis. So in a pericarditis you will get a concave. You will see in lead 1, lead 2, lead 3, AVL, AVF, AVF right from V2 to V6, and in AVR you will get a PR segment elevation with ST depression, while in other lead you will have a PR segment depression with ST segment elevation, and at that J point you can have a fish hook appearance. This will be pericarditis. You can see those changes right from lead 1, lead 2, AVF, then V2 to V6, and in AVR you will have a PR segment elevation with ST depression. This is the difference. At your leisure time you can go through between early repolarization and pericarditis. In Brugada you will have a 3 varieties. Here you will have a RBBB pattern with ST segment curved down, curved up. This is ST segment with T wave inversion. You will see in V2, V1, V2 as well as V3 you may see that saddleback appearance will be in type 2 or type B. Here you can see that in V1, V2 and V3, mainly in V1 and V2, you can see curved down and little amount of RBBB pattern. Type 1, type 2 saddle appearance. This is another variety of a saddle appearance. So it is divided into type 1, type 2 and type 3. So type 2 and 3 is having biphasic. In type 2 the elevation is more than 2 millimeter, while in type 3 it is 1 millimeter. I am skipping over all this. So you have to differentiate Brugada from early repolarization. Very easy. In Brugada you get an ST elevation with downsloping, while in early repolarization syndrome in V4, V5, V6 you will have a J point elevation with notch at the J point. You may see these changes also in inferior leads as well as lateral leads. We call inferolateral. That will be in type 2, while in case of a benign variety you will get changes in chest leads only. You will not see in a inferior leads, and in a dangerous variety you will come across in a right side precordial lead plus inferior leads and inferolateral leads. So when you come across that, it is more dangerous. Here the ST elevation is curved up, while here it is concave. So these are some of the difference. Benign early repolarization, always keep it in mind, all are not benign. Type 2 and type 3 are lethal. So those we don't call as a benign, we call that as the early repolarization syndromes. And together we put them into one group, we call J-wave syndromes. So J-wave syndromes will include early repolarization syndrome, which we divide into type 1, type 2, type 3. Brugada is included in type 4 variety, and you come also across in case of hypothermia. You can also have a J-wave elevation in case of hypocalcemia, hypokalemia, hypomagnesemia, and also in a drug induced like quinidine, amiodarone, etc. So always there is a doubt whether it is STEMI or not. It is STEMI until proved otherwise. Always consider that way. So in case of doubt, unless you are 100% sure that it is benign early repolarization, always go for coronary angiography to exclude STEMI. So patient with early repolarization pattern, if misdiagnosed as STEMI, only risk is unnecessarily invasive angiography will be there, which will show normal. But if person is STEMI and misdiagnosed as early repolarization, and you don't do revascularization procedure, person will have a complete STEMI, and there will be post myocardial complication, and risk of mortality will be very, very high. All this we have already mentioned before. At your leisure time, you can go through. That is what are the changes, where are the changes in hyperkalemia, hypokalemia, hypothermia, hypomagnesemia, hypocalcemia, hypercalcemia, Brugada, Whelan sign, De Winter sign, pericarditis, and ARVD. It is important clue at your leisure time. So hyperkalemia, you will have a tall T wave seen in many leads. Hypokalemia, flat T wave with U wave appearance, many leads. Hypothermia, Osborn wave at J point elevation, again in multiple leads. Hypomagnesemia, long QT, again in multiple leads. Hypocalcemia also will produce hypomagnesemia, hypocalcemia will produce long QT, while hypercalcemia will have a short QT, and this will produce what we call as a global changes. Brugada will be seen sign, that is ST elevation, or we call as early repolarization, curved up ST segment with T wave inversion in V1, V2, V3. Whelan sign, you will have a ST depression with biphasic T wave in type 1 or type A variety, and symmetrical inverted T wave, deep symmetrical inverted T wave in type 2 variety, and that changes you will see in V2, V3. De Winter sign, you will have a ST depression with upright T wave in V2, V3, V4. These both suggest left anterior descending branch tight occlusion. Pericarditis will have a J point elevation with concavity upward, ST segment elevation, J point elevation. At J point, you might get a fish hook appearance, and you will see in a multiple leads, plus you will see PR depression in opposite direction of ST elevation, and in AVR you will get PR elevation with ST depression. In ARVD, in lead V1 and V2, you might see epsilon wave. These are the characteristics. Look for those. These are the changes in hypokalemia, hyperkalemia, hypocalcemia, hypercalcemia, hypomagnesemia, and hypermagnesemia. So just at your leisure time, go through this electrolyte. Of this, potassium and calcium you will come across quite common in your everyday practice, while magnesium is not so common. Remember, in hypo, that is hypokalemia, hypocalcemia, and hypomagnesemia, you will have a long QT. You will have a long QT. While in hyperkalemia, usually you will have a short QT. In hypercalcemia, again you will have a short QT. In hypomagnesemia, you will have a long QT. So do remember those things. Osborn wave you will get in hypothermia and hypercalcemia, quite common. Epsilon wave is characteristic of arrhythmogenic right ventricular dysplasia, which short form we call as ARVD. And delta wave is characteristic of WPW syndrome. So Osborn wave We'll show you that it is also described as camel hump sign or late delta sign or hat hook junction, or also we label as J point elevation Osborne wave, that is seen in hypothermia and hypercalcemia. So in hypothermia at this J point you will get an elevation. Here there is a slight elevation only, but you will see this type of elevation. Those are called as Osborne wave along with J point elevation, characteristic in a case of hypothermia, and they are very commonly seen in a chaselets, that is V3 to V6. We'll see this J point elevation and Osborne wave. Again, more characteristic of hypothermia and hypercalcemia. Also you can get in a head injury with raised intracranial pressure, occasionally with some of the medications. So very nice Osborne wave. And very characteristic in chaselets. Also you can see here in L2, L3, AVF also, even in lead 1. Sometimes these are misdiagnosed as even infarct. Epsilon wave characteristic. This is an epsilon wave. This will be seen in V1 and V2, and it is a characteristic of ARVD. ARVD. Very characteristic epsilon wave. Again, you can see here, very characteristic. This is a 22-year-old person came with palpitation, and you can see a short PR with delta wave. So this is WPW syndrome. Very nicely seen in lead 1 and very nicely seen in V6. So I end my lecture here. I think this will be very helpful to you, particularly regarding J point, J wave, how to differentiate early repolarization, how to group them into benign, that is type 1, type 2 and type 3 are lethal, and to differentiate pericarditis from STEMI, to differentiate benign early repolarization from STEMI. Always try to differentiate those two groups. So at the end of this lecture, thank you for taking out time. I know that your time is valuable, and I appreciate you for spending some of the time with me. And I feel that this will be very, very helpful to you if you are working in ICU and when you are doing your private practice. Because to differentiate benign early repolarization from STEMI, to differentiate that from pericarditis, and also from other conditions like ARVD, Brugada syndrome, hypothermia, electrolyte imbalance like hypokalemia, hypocalcemia, hypomagnesemia, it is utmost important, and treatment will differ in each condition. See you in next lecture.